former head of state calls for unity of purpose in the Nigerian project as the nation marked the milestone of 25 years of unbroken democracy. The Apex Court reserves judgment in the case for local government autonomy. Also on political update today, 10 questions for the 10th Assembly. We have these and more on our lineup. I am Fisayo Ogunfuyi. Welcome. And just coming in today, a federal high court sitting in Kano has ordered the Kano state government to pay the sum of 10 million naira as damages to the deposed Emir Aminu Ado Bayero for violating his fundamental human rights. The court, which assumed jurisdiction to hear Bayero's rights violation suit, also ordered the Kano state government to guarantee the deposed Emir's right to movement and personal liberty. In a ruling on Friday, the presiding judge of the Federal High Court 3, Justice Simon Amebeda, noted that he was duty-bound to resolve the issue of jurisdiction of the court to determine the case before delving into the main matter of the case. According to him, without jurisdiction, any proceeding is a nullity. Justice Amebeda, while declaring the jurisdiction of the court to hear the case, insisted that the issue fell under abuse of fundamental human rights of the applicant, adding that the Constitution had granted the Federal High Court the powers to preside over the matter. He noted that Bayero was seeking, among others, reliefs for the payment of 5 billion as damages from the Kano state government for breaching his fundamental human rights. Now, former head of state and midwife to the present Democratic Dispensation, General Absalami Abubakar, has urged Nigerians to close ranks and compliment government's efforts to put an end to the unwanted killings in and around the country. In an exclusive interview with NTA News during the week, the head of state, who are congratulating Nigerians for achieving 25 years of uninterrupted democracy, urged the populace to guard their democratic rights jealously.
On May 29, 1999, Nigerians witnessed the historic handover of power to a democratically elected president after many years of military leadership. 25 years on, General Absalami Abubakar, who handed over the reins of power while congratulating Nigerians, says, despite the challenges, democracy is a continuous process and the best form of governance.
You should guard your voters' rights jealously. People should not sell their votes. Both the umpires and the participants and Nigerians need to try to see how they can better the system.
General Abdulsalami urged Nigerians to play their own part in overcoming the cankerworm of insecurity.
It is left to all of us to join hands to make sure that we get security. And the government alone cannot get the security unless we as the citizens also try to help the government and the security agencies.
The former head of state also advised politicians to fulfill their campaign promises by leading with equity and justice as their guiding principles.
And during the celebrations, democracy crusaders and progressives relieved the sacrifices in the trenches during the agitations that birthed the Third Republic. The Fourth Republic, I beg your pardon. During the dinner organized to mark Democracy Day, speakers urged today's leaders to see healthy disagreements as signposts on the road to progress.
It's one more moment to cap the celebration of an unprecedented democratic feat in Nigeria's history, the silver anniversary of the country's democracy. But this night, the focal point was almost eclipsed by the descriptions of the contributions made every step of the way by these men now at the helm of affairs.
When you were one of those whom Chief MQ Abiola sent to talk to Abuja, and one incident that happened was that the security men tried to shove you away, and today you are the president of this country.
The speakers believe the story of a democratic journey in Nigeria cannot be complete without the story of Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
This is the first time that a true Democrat, a true progressive, who took part in the political wing of the struggle, in the economic, financial wing of the struggle, in the activism of the struggle, on the streets, on the barricades, will become the president of Nigeria.
When his contemporaries were struggling for a space on the dinner table in Abuja, and in the process throwing their colleagues, their allies under the bus, he took the opportunity to build an alternative platform for the Nigerian democracy.
Appreciation for the eulogies, but then President Tinubu's attention is now obviously focused on unity and development of a country.
That is the reason that we say we hand over a banner without stain to our children and grandchildren. Is it not true that Nigeria is greater than any one of us? That the unity of this country cannot be traded.
While the nation marked 25 years of unbroken democracy, the 10th National Assembly also marked its first year, legislating for development and championing the cause of the Nigerian people, they say. Chairman House Committee on Rules and Business and member representing Ughelli North, Ughelli South and Udu Federal Constituency, Honorable Reverend Francis Waive joins us today. I always put the Reverend. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
In concrete terms, can you rate the legislative contributions in the National Assembly in the past year?
Yeah, the 10th National Assembly, particularly the House of Representatives, where I serve as chairman of the House Committee on Rules and Business, has done very well in this 1 year, particularly when you take into view the fact that about 80% of the membership were new. You know, the high turnover in legislature in our country. And you compare that period 1 year down the line, you will see that a lot of capacity has been built, and that is attributable to the efforts of our Speaker, the Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD. He's done a lot of capacity building workshops at the committee level, at the House level, and today you can't tell the difference between those who have been in Parliament a long time and those who are just coming. So that's a major achievement. Before you now talk about the beautiful legislation that have taken place during this 1 year, for instance, the Audit Ordinance of 1956, this is the Assembly that has now changed that story, and now we have the Audit Service Bill that we have passed, awaiting concurrence from the Senate and then Mr. President's assent. So, and there are many other bills that we have passed that have helped the economy and the country at large. So the 10th Assembly, even in matter of turning out of bills, the House of Representatives at the last count, we have done 1,351 bills that have made first reading on the floor just in 1 year. That will tell you the passion with which members are pursuing the work of legislation. And then the fact that Mr. Speaker is giving everyone the room, you know, to speak on the floor. And it's something to commend. So this assembly has been a great one, made up of people of high repute, professors, lawyers, doctors, army generals, permanent secretaries, architects, engineers, you name it, and a lot of young people who are very enthusiastic about our country. You know, so I'm very pleased to be a part of the 10th House of Representatives, and I like where we are going. Look at our 10th Assembly agenda. Everything is covered there, and we're being guided by that. Security, you know, the economy.
I'll let you come to all that very
Yes,
shortly,
yes.
because the way you are going, I might not be able to ask you know, my questions. But you took the second question out of my mouth because you were part of the last assembly, the 9th Assembly.
Sure.
What improvements have you experienced in this dispensation? Of course, one would say, okay, the high turnover, the issue of experience in legislative activities. But are there some unique or distinguishing features that you have seen that will further accelerate getting these, you know, bills to fruition, or, I mean, in terms of your experience so far in the past year?
Yeah, like you rightly said, I was in the 9th Assembly, and my people of Ughelli North, Ughelli South has given me the privilege to serve them again here in the 10th Assembly. If I do a comparison, the first thing that comes to mind is the approach of Mr. Speaker, the Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas. While he tries to protect the institution and the country, he's not afraid of what people will say on the floor. while we try to protect the image to ensure that what is said is true and correct. But you'll find that there has been a participation of almost every member. If you look at the percentage of members who have bills to their credit in just 1 year, it will be higher than any other legislature. And then you look at some of the bills we have churned out. Look at what is happening now in Abuja, the city being turned around. You would recall how we handled the Abuja FCT to 2024 appropriation, the 2023 appropriation supplementary, and then the 2025 supplementary for FCT. And look at what is happening all over the place now. And then look at our intervention in terms of security, in terms of even the industrial action and all of that, and international discourse, the wage discussion, and Mr. Speaker will talk about living wage for the Nigerian worker. So you find that we have a house that is sensitive to the people. And in fact, we pride ourselves as the people's parliament. You know, before the 2024 budget was ever debated by parliament, we had a people's opportunity for the masses to come and add their opinion. It was a people's opportunity, a people's parliament. And then we divided ourselves into committees and then began to do the work we're elected to do. So you see the difference of the involvement of people, and then the capacity building, and then the results that are coming from that, and the fact that the leadership has been such that, you know, Mr. Speaker, he has no dog in any fight, very unassuming, and he's ready to listen. If you are logical and you can convince him, well, he's up. He goes for it.
Honorable, let me come in there.
Yes.
You have been on the pulpit in the past, and you know that communication is key, especially in terms of, having that umbilical cord unsevered between yourself and your constituents.
Yeah.
Now we've seen a lot of consensus building in the House amongst members and all that. But do you still return? When I say you, not just you, members return to your constituents before you present some of these things that look as if everybody's in agreement on the floor. Not everybody, but a majority is in agreement. But what of those who sent you there in the first place?
Sure, we do. If you look at, I'll give you an instance, all the constitutional amendments that have come on the floor, you will find that all of them originate from the people. The ones I have personally, brought before the floor, if you recall the debates on them, there are things that my constituents have mentioned that we want this change. The ones on the Electoral Act, for instance, there are things that constituents mentioned. And the same thing with all that members bring before the floor. It is what constituents mentioned. And moreover, you find that many of the things we'll meet Mr. President about, particularly this issue of alleviating the hardship of the people, you find that it always originates from us, the Parliament. And you will also know that in almost all of our sittings, there's a discussion about the security situation of our country. All of this emanates from the people who sent us here to speak on their behalf and to represent them. So it's a very representative assembly, a people's house indeed.
All right, let's move on. We'll come to your constituency and your job also on the floor very shortly. But let's take a few stories. The Supreme Court has reserved judgment in the suit filed by the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, SAM, praying the court to grant local governments in Nigeria full autonomy. This was after parties in the matter adopted their final written addresses.
At Thursday's proceeding, all the 36 states of the Federation were represented in court. Justice Garba Lawal, leading the 7-man panel of justices, sought a celebrated hearing of the matter, thereby giving an order to parties to file their final written addresses. Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, in adopting his address, urged the Supreme Court to grant all the relief sought, which include an order prohibiting state governors from embarking on unilateral, arbitrary, and unlawful dissolution of democratically elected local government officials, an order to withhold the funds meant for local government in such states that unlawfully dissolves democratically elected local government officials through illegal Transitional Implementation Committee. Also, an order to allow the monthly allocation of local governments to be directly paid to them from the Federation account in line with the provisions of the Constitution as against alleged unlawful joint accounts created by governors. The Attorney General of the Federation urged the justices to go through his submission and grant all the prayers. The 36 states defendants in the matter took turn to adopt processes filed, which include counter affidavits and written addresses as their arguments in the case in strong opposition to the reliefs being sought by the federal government. They urged the justices of the Apex Court to dismiss the plaintiff's originating summons with substantial cost.
Most of us in all the states of the Federation have contended that that is not the true position. And we have submitted our true positions in respect of all the various states to the court. So we are waiting for the court's own verdict.
The court of Nigeria has no original jurisdiction to entertain this matter on the ground that the relief sought are beneficial to the local governments of Nigeria who are not parties to the matter.
To grant what the AG is seeking, in our own view, though the courts are yet to decide on it, will amount to amendment of the law.
To some legislative matters, now the proposed 2024 supplementary budget will soon be submitted to the Federal Executive Council for approval and subsequent transmission to the National Assembly for passage. Minister of Budget and Economic Planning Atiku Bagudu said this during an engagement with the Senate and House of Representatives Joint Committee on National Planning and Economic Affairs.
The proposed 2024 supplementary budget, the minister explains, is for infrastructure development, boosting the CNG transition initiative, and may also accommodate the new national minimum wage being agitated by the organized labor.
Transformational projects, including Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road, proposed Sokoto-Badagry Road, completion of all ongoing railway projects for which we have either not provided counterpart funding or funding for rolling stocks, as well as rehabilitation and expansion of dams and irrigation schemes in order to support increase in production within the economy.
Educate us as to how far the government has gone in securing the borrowing that is necessary to sustain and implement the budget. Thank you, sir.
Atiku Bagudu adds that the appropriation will be partially funded with the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund domiciled in the National Sovereign Wealth Investment Authority. The lawmakers, however, suggest that instead of transmitting a fresh budget document, the 2024 budget could be amended to avoid additional processing costs.
If we go for supplementary budget, the amount of requirements are going to be much higher. Because, of course, you cannot do assembly budget without taking the entire political system into account. But when you do an amendment and introduce those elements that you think are necessary and upgrade some projects that are already there, but you maybe increase their funding, and it will be cheaper.
All right, on the home run now, we still have a member representing Ughelli North, South and Udu Federal Constituency, and also Chairman House Committee on Rules and Business, Honorable Reverend Francis Waive here with us. Honorable, the Niger Delta has been your passion, especially in the last assembly. Are you still pushing in one or two things to make sure that the development in that area is consistent, and then perhaps some of the agencies saddled with developing the region are attentive to the plight of the people, or are you bogged down by this committee because rules and business, your own is to perhaps help your colleagues move their own bills through the window?
Very good question, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed when you serve 360 or 359 persons now, honorable members. You get overwhelmed that you might not even have the time or memory to remember that you're also there to serve your people. But the beautiful thing is that my constituents are very enlightened people. They would put the pressure on you, they will remind you, they will push you, and then you go home and you see the suffering from the environment, the degradation from oil exploration. You can't run away from it. A couple of weeks ago, I lost my mother-in-law, and I got back home, and nobody had to tell me. I experienced it. So it continues to be a major influence on the bills and motions that I raise on the floor. And in this assembly, I've talked about the Benin-Warri Expressway being completed, rehabilitated, and reconstructed. I've talked about the railway that comes from Ujebu all the way, but stops at Itakpe. It must come all the way to Abuja. I've talked about the problems at the steel plant in Alaja, and then the Okwama issue in Ugele South. Everyone knows the effort we put in there, and on and on. So
that's just
there's no way I can forget my people.
Yeah, time
they
is not our
sent
friend.
me here,
but
and this is why they sent me.
No, I will let you finish, because
Yeah.
I just want you to brief, because you just mentioned it, in passing. The
Yeah.
Okwama issue, that was a regrettable issue.
Oh, very sad.
Did you do some consultation also with your people, so that activities like this or actions like this would, there'll be a stop to it, in terms of also, bringing up their consciousness that this is an act against the state?
Yeah, the Okwama incident is a very sad one. The painful part for me is that it took place in our soil. But I can tell you from all that I have looked at and researched, it was not done by our people. And I pray that one day the perpetrators will be caught and brought to book. Because what happened is a crime against humanity. It's barbaric. Fortunately for me, the whole of that area on both sides of the river, I have done medical missionary work in those areas and stayed there, slept there for days on end, several years before coming to the National Assembly. Those people simply do not have the capacity to carry out that kind of heinous crime. And for what reason would they do that? So our prayer is that those who did it will be caught and brought to book. And for my people, my main concern right now, having got our king out of detention, is to get the community rebuilt and get our people to put their lives back together again. And I pray that there will be some reparations, some damages paid. Of course, you can't replace lives that have been lost. I sympathize with the army for lives that were lost. I also sympathize with my people who died in the bush due to starvation, hunger, incense, and animal cruelty and all of that. And then those who were brutalized. It's a very painful experience. I honestly want to quickly forget about it. But I pray that the real perpetrators be caught and brought to book, and my people's innocence be shown to the whole world that we are not that what they say we are.
All right, Honorable Francis Waive, of course, also a man of deep religious convictions as well. Thank you for coming on Political Update today. Hopefully, in the course of the year, we'll still bring you back to do some review of activities.
It will be my pleasure. My first time this tenure.
Of the 10th Assembly. That has been Political Update for today. We'll be back on Tuesday for a fresh package. Between now and then, play your politics for the greater good and keep it locked on Africa's finest and largest Nigerian television authority for news, reviews, previews, and interviews. Bye-bye now.